Hello, greetings, and welcome to the Purple Portal. It is a beautiful day here in South Florida, and the question for you today is, how are you being? Today's the day to give up the question, how are you doing? We seem to ask that so casually of one another. Stop the doing. How are you being? And that's kind of going to be threaded all through the whole month that we're in. And we're in the sign of Scorpio. And that being, if you can really be under the sign of Scorpio, oh my golly, look out. You will be like the phoenix. Maybe you'll be reduced to the ashes, but you will rise up out of your own ashes and be so spectacular, your wings will spread to such an expansive, magical state that you're going to hardly recognize who you are. So I do greet you, and I am your host, the Reluctant Mystic, Elaine Bartlett. And today I've invited many of you on Facebook to call in and join the conversation. And for those of you who did not get that number, it's 321-806-3159. 321-806-3159. And don't be intimidated by this wonderful male voice that answers. Jeff will pipe you right on through to me. And if you're a little reluctant to pick up the phone and you have a personal, private question that you wish to ask, you can contact me at Purple, as in the color, Portal, Portal, and the number's 777. So it's Purple Portal at Purple Portal 777 at gmail.com. And I also invite you to go to my website, higherconsciousness.com. There you can poke around and see what I'm up to. And that's HIERCONSCIOUSNESS. So we're going to talk about a couple of things today, a couple of special things. The big part of today's topic is going to be about Lakshmi. But before we get to Lakshmi, I just want to give you a sort of a personal announcement here, a heads up. On November 4th, I have been invited to be the guest speaker at Florida Institute of Technology, giving a presentation on mindfulness. Little do they know it, but the mindfulness talk is actually going to steer itself more into non-duality, being in a state of oneness and remaining in a state of presence awareness. So I'm going to kind of take mindfulness to a new height, which is perfect under the sign of Scorpio, because the old must die. Of course, isn't it interesting? We're having elections under the sign of Scorpio, where the old must die. So if you want any further information on November 4th, it is in the evening from 6:30 to 8. It's in the library lobby at Evans Library on the campus of FIT. And if you want anything further on that, then you're going to have to contact me via Purple Portal 777 at gmail.com, and I'll give you any further information that you wish. But it is open to the public, so I do encourage you to come on in and meet and greet. So that's a fun thing. I'll give a shout out. I've given a shout out before to my loyal listener down in Boca Raton, Laurel, who is mending her body and putting herself all back together after a year of many health issues. So a big shout out and a heart full of love to you, Laurel. And Laurel had asked me an interesting question between this week and last week. And the question actually was surrounding my discussion of the feng shui of your office last week. Laurel has studied with me. She reminds me, she heard me say this 30 years ago. You gotta love somebody who remembers what you said 30 years ago and has kept in touch to remind you that you said that. So the conflict is about your chair and the position of your desk. It's not actually a conflict. It's simply different approaches of thought. And I have studied book after book with Chinese master upon Chinese master, masters from other cultures outside of China. And there seems to be a discrepancy of thinking, and I actually understand it. Some of the teachers and the books insist that you have your back to the window and you're looking into the room. Well, that's all well and good if you have kind of a blind or a drape or curtain behind you to block some of that chi from dissipating actually out of your spinal energy. The other concept is, no, you want to be looking out the window. I've given it a lot of contemplation. I give things like that probably undue contemplation until it shakes down inside of me and I actually get a sense of what is going to be the healthiest thing for the bulk of you and me. The biggest thing is if you are in a position, either you own the company or you're a key player in the company or even a lowly secretary, you need to be able to see the doorway. It's actually more the doorway that's the issue versus the window placement. It's the doorway where the expression is, oh, there is where the enemy comes in. So you want to see the enemy. If you are in a position where you have your back to the doorway, that's not going to kill you and the enemy is not going to jump at you. But there's a very easy cure. Simply, sometimes it's your computer screen that does this. You need a little reflector. So your computer screen could be the reflector, so you see what's coming up behind you. Or you have a little mirror on the wall, and it could be just a tiny little thing that just gives your spirit a sense of peace of mind. You know, if you were a mafia member, now I'm not a mafia member, but the very few movies I've seen connected with the mafia, they would never sit with their back to the door. They want to be able to be in what's called the command position to see what's coming at them. And your spirit actually appreciates that as well. So do your best with where you have this chair in position to the window. Personally, I am rather mercurial. Therefore, I change my furniture fairly frequently, maybe every 3 months or so. I simply get bored with it and tired of the energy as it is. So I shake things up a little. And I could turn the room completely on its ear, and it seems to make me very happy. Some people get absolutely intimidated by the idea of even changing the desk from the left side of the room to the right side of the room. That temperament is actually what we call more of a wood nature. Those people tend to be a bit stubborn, obstinate, fixed, and they certainly have an allergic reaction to the word called change. So do your best with it. Your spirit knows where it wants to be, and if it doesn't feel right, and if you're not successful, try changing. Just change the chair, flip it to the other side, turn the desk around. It's not the end of the world to simply turn your desk around. So that's one thing, and I hope, Laurel, that gave you a little more clarity. And P.S., I do hope your recovery is going at its own gentle, proper pace, as every recovery needs to. So I will not say to you, hurry and get well, because I don't believe in that. There's no hurrying in the universal force. Everything is in proper timing. And the next question that I've had between last week and this one is a friend has a fellow, her honey, has a man cave. And the man cave is in the northwest direction of their home. And the northwest direction is something called Chien, which means heavy. It's all about big metal. It's called big metal, meaning things like steel and silver, and it's just simply called big metal. It relates to your lungs and your intestinal tract and your brain. It also is the power point for a male, generally, because it has to do with head of the company, the father, the parent, the chief cook and bottle washer, if you will. It is predominantly what we call a yang energy, meaning it's all male. However, in this day and age, particularly in the United States, many women have had to fulfill the shoes of the male energy and step up and become the main breadwinner. So then the Northwest becomes very, very critical for them. The colors pertaining to the Northwest are all of the silver tones, whites, any of the whites and light creams, grays, dove gray, anything in that spectrum, because that supports this strong energy, which is also, it's got another name called help from heaven. So it's actually a good place if you have a little talisman that represents help from heaven, an angel, a goddess, a god, a Buddha, the Christ energy, whatever you like. But it's a very good area to put talismans like that. But at any rate, this dear gentleman has been happy in his man cave for the last 10 years, and it's kind of painted a pea green. Now, their fortunes for the last 10 years have not been very strong. And just this day, she finally thought to ask me, what about the color? I'm thinking of changing it to dove gray and white. And I'm like, you go, girl. Because what's happening energetically, because the Northwest is metal, and the green in there is actually what we would refer to in feng shui as wood. Metal chops wood. So their infrastructure subtly, very subtly, was being undermined. So yes, indeed, sometimes pay attention. Go check out your Northwest. It's a very, very important piece of your home. Now, that being said, every pocket of your home is important, because what good is it for me to say, oh, be careful of your lungs, they're very, very important, and dismiss your liver and your heart, all the other things. Everything has a meaning, and everything is there to support you. Okay, so there we have the couple of questions. Oh, there was another question, a thought about moving and how to protect the house. And this was a case where it's a 2-story home, and the first story, the bottom level, is where the tenants are, and the second story is where the owners are. The first floor people, the tenants, are not behaving particularly well, and that's putting it very nicely. The owners really want them to leave, but the owners are hesitant to tell them to leave. So the owner is choosing to suffer rather than address the problem. So my first suggestion was, we're not to suffer for someone else. It really is very, very negative. You can do all your suffering on your own. Don't pick up someone else's suffering, and don't write a story about their suffering. Just let it be. So what we determined to do in this was actually use the energy of the violet light or the violet flame. It's called the violet light, the violet flame, the violet shield. And we actually set up, I took the house apart energetically, and I wrapped the lower floor, almost like you would wrap a parcel that you're going to take to the post office, like no strings, nothing on it. Just wrapped this thing enormously in the color violet. Now, at first, the owner really didn't care if I did that or not. She was more interested in, what about me up on the second floor? And I pointed out, well, under the law of one, we want this tenant to go forward and be happy. So energetically, it's a better way to play it, even if they've not been the most gracious guests as tenants. People forget that we're actually all guests on this planet. And I don't care how much you